service that we have once every year called Guest at Your Table, hence the table with the guests. While most of our social justice work and donations are focused on local causes, on one Sunday a year we widen our perspective to global concerns with a service we call Guest at Your Table. And this year's theme is Women Leaders, Strong Communities. We're going to have 4 stories presented. They are all in these little red booklets, and you will find each one. If you wish to take one today, there's some here and some out in the vestibule. The Unitarian-Universalist Service Committee, or UUSC, has been working with partners around the globe to secure basic human rights for people in myriad desperate situations. And it's been going on for 80 years. This year, it was exactly 80 years. I think of it as creating pockets of light and hope in people and places that have only known darkness and despair. Today we'll get to hear four true stories of hope from our guests, who I'm introducing in character by the names of the individuals they are portraying. I'll introduce them again using their actual names at the end of the program. First, please meet Pelanise Alafa. She's bringing us her story from Kiribati, a small island nation made up of low-lying islands in the South Pacific. Pelanise, welcome.
Thank you, Diane. My name is Pelanise Alafa, and I am from Kiribati. I want to tell you a little bit about what the work we do there for addressing climate change, the way that it is affecting our very low-lying islands. First, about me, I was originally an educator. I've been the national coordinator for the Kiribati Climate Action Network, which does some similar work to another organization that I'm directing, the Live and Learn Environmental Education Kiribati, which is supported by UUSC. And I've done a lot of work in these islands and in trying to get the word out from our islands to other parts of the world. I want to show you where our islands are. We have a map up here. I wanted to bring a map, and I thought, I can't bring a big enough map for you to really see the island on it. It would just be a big sheet of blue paper with tiny little dots on it. And I'd say, this cluster of dots is our island. But here you can see that it said, I know you can't, but as a reference point, here's Hawaii. And here are the Kiribati Island groups. And there are several islands there that are incorporated. It covers a huge, huge distance. There's 33 islands. They're all atoll islands or coral reef. And on those islands, there are over 100,000 people living. So the population density where the people do live, they don't live on all of our islands. Some of them are too small. But where people live, it is pretty crowded in some of those areas. Tarawa is the capital, and there's about half of the population lives there on that island. So the trouble with these islands, of course, speaking climatically, is that they only sit about 3 meters high at their highest point in the ocean. They're the tops of volcanic formations in the ocean bed. And so a little bit of ocean rise affects our islands rather dramatically. And the thing that really gets me is that the indigenous people of the world did not create the climate change crisis that we're experiencing the most. We're the ones being hit. We have the least impact. We use very little fossil fuels, and the effects are being felt by us. So if you can imagine, you know, all it takes is an extra high tide, like a king tide, and it comes in and it can sweep away towns and sweeps away seawalls that we frantically rebuild and rebuild. It sweeps over where the crops are grown, and then it gets into the fresh water supply and contaminates. And so it's affecting everything about the way we live. Most of the people on my islands live in a very subsistence kind of lifestyle, and they live very directly off the land. And so this very real threat is challenging everything about our way of life, and making us people consider, do I have to move? Do I have to relocate? Am I going to just be engulfed in another group of people's population, their culture? I want to retain my culture. I want to be able to retain the things that make us a people, and it's not easy to do that. So the work that the UUSC has helped me do has been very valuable, because people need education about what ways they can respond to the climate crisis, and I am able, with their help, with the UUSC help, to travel to many of the outlying communities. They're all kind of outlying, but you know what I mean, like some of the farther ones away. It's a lot of traveling, and there were islands that we hadn't even reached yet. And I conduct programs on health and waste management, like how to plant mangrove trees to mitigate the sea level rise. So we're in the third phase now. It's growing bigger. Our voices are bigger. One of the really important things we do is install water tanks to increase access to clean water, and advise people on how to advocate for their rights. And it's really important to just collect their stories as we go around and have that information to inform the government, so that they're just not making policy without ever getting out from behind their desk and finding out what people are really experiencing. One of the best things that the UUCG did a couple of years ago, just a little over a year ago, in 2018, there was a conference for the First People and Indigenous people. It's called First Peoples Convening on Climate Force Displacement, and they flew me all the way up to Alaska, and it was not like a climate I'm very used to, so I had to wear a very thick coat and meet with other people who are feeling these impacts like we are, and that's people in some of the villages along the coast of Alaska, also people from the coast of Louisiana, and some people from Washington State that are indigenous. And so we had a really good conference, meeting each other and trying to reinforce what we all know, and we had a declaration that was formed to get people to understand how this climate change is impacting us, and why it's so important that the rest of the world wakes up and does something about it before we are just swamped and washed away. So I hope that you will consider supporting UUSCG today, because I feel like it's the most important work you could be doing right now. Thank you.
Things that we wouldn't have any idea about are being represented today. Next, we'll hear from Marta Velasquez. She is joining us from Honduras today.
Thank you, Diane. My name is Marta Velasquez, and I come from the nation of Honduras. I'm going to start my presentation with a question. Are you a feminist?
Yes.
That's you may think that's maybe a personal choice or a political choice that has many meanings in your culture. In my culture, it's a matter of life or death. I think I have been a feminist since I was a young woman in my 20s. I always felt this need and some natural leadership qualities. Our nation is unfortunately the second in the world for the highest rate of femicide. Femicide is killing a woman because she is a woman. Of course, many of these occasions occur in interpersonal violence and partner violence and domestic violence, but also contract killings and even governmental financed. Many of our activists, our feminist activists have been murdered, raped, tortured, murdered. So I'm starting out describing a very unpleasant situation. I hope to bring you in my story of that I feel is of hope. In 2003, my own organization that is in the northwest of the country, in San Pedro de Sula, joined with, as part of 17 other organizations into a forum. It's called El Foro de Mujeres, which means the forum, por la vida. It means the Women's Forum for Life. And it doesn't mean for life, it means to live, to stay alive. What do? We started with, it's a grassroots movement, education. The women are very powerful, and they can be very powerful if they know they are not alone. We train other women to be leaders, to spread the message. So it's been going on since 2003. Unfortunately, either because of the documentation has improved, but the femicide rate has increased. As I said, it's only second in the world to San Salvador, which is our next door neighbor. So many of the reasons, the cultural reasons, are very similar, but we have been trading the honor back and forth between our nations now, because at the time it was us. So, as you can see, being a feminist in our country is a matter of life or death. Thanks very much to the Unitarian-Universalist Service Committee. We have been able to start documenting not only femicide, but other crimes against women, including rape and domestic violence. Women actually feel they have someone they can come and tell. Since, however, 2009, there was a military coup, and then 2017, there was an election that was clearly fraudulent, or let's say a lot of people thought it was fraudulent, and they went to the streets. The government has since cracked down with orders shoot to kill. Of course, this renders everybody quite vulnerable, but in particular women. It has become dangerous to be a dissenter in my country, but thanks to the Unitarian-Universalist Service Committee and indirectly your donation and your help, we have been able to set up security measures. Our women never go anyplace alone anymore. They have protection. So even though it's difficult, I still have so much hope. In spite of all of this difficulty, in 2015, the Honduran government allocated 30 million Honduran lempiras to the creation of a special unit in 2016 for femicide investigation. So in spite of all the difficulties, I do have hope. I have seen a difference. Most of all, working together with other women, I see how together we can make a difference. And thank you.
Thank you, Martha. And now we welcome Wai Wai Nu, who has traveled from Burma, which is also known as Myanmar, to share her background and the organization she founded there, Women Peace Network.
I've done this before, so my daughter told me it was politically incorrect to cover my head and pose as a Muslim, so I'm going to wear it around my neck. became 32 years old. Along with my entire family, I was imprisoned in Burma, which is now called Myanmar, at the age of 18. Even though we had committed no crime, our family was held in squalid conditions for 7 years because my father was a politician with the opposition party. While I was in prison, I met others who had been arrested unjustly, and I listened to their stories. I noticed that the women prisoners in particular lacked legal support and felt hopeless about their futures. So I began to develop a passion for women's rights. Just because they are women, they have less access to justice. Because of these experiences, I planned to become a lawyer focused on women's rights when I was released. I thought I should help these women to have dreams. But when I was released at the age of 25, the eruption of ethno-religious violence caused me to alter my plans. You see, we are Rohingya, an ethnic minority group that practices Islam in a predominantly Buddhist country. In Burma, ethnic and religious minorities have long suffered violence and discrimination. In 1982, a citizenship law was put in place which recognizes only a certain number of national ethnic groups as full citizens. Other ethnic groups are partial citizens, and for the Rohingya, no citizenship status at all. 6 months after my release, violence erupted against the Rohingya. Rohingya men were called a violent threat to the country, but women were assaulted as well. So I founded the Women's Peace Network, an organization that works to uphold the rights of women and minorities. Our strategy is to find commonality within the country and to build solidarity and resilience among the people. Our society is starting to realize that the enemy is not the Rohingya. I am thankful for UUSC's support as we advocate for human rights in Burma. I have been able to bring the face of Rohingya women to the public. I am encouraged that through this work I have been recognized as one of the BBC 100 Women, named one of the Times magazine's Next Generation Leaders. Thank you.
And finally, we'll hear from Monica Kursa about her Activate Labs, a unique experience for travelers seeking asylum.
Hello, my name is Monica Kurka, and I want to show you something. I have found that as an organizer, it really helps to be the loudest noise in any space you are occupying. So I take this everywhere. As Diane said, I founded a group called Activate Labs. We're based in DC, and we travel to all places where asylum seekers are passing through in Central America. So we take music and art and storytelling and the tools to make art and express yourself to places like shelters, border crossings, food kitchens, all the places that people who are migrating away from suffering with hope pass through. And I can speak personally to the importance of art and self-expression because I came to this country with my parents from Romania when I was 5 years old. They were being persecuted by the communist government at the time, and we lost so much in coming to this country. But the thing that we kept is our stories. When I was organizing before I founded Activate Labs, I always was seen as a little silly by other organizers. So they saw my emphasis on art and that sort of expression as silly. This is serious work. This is changing policy. This is trying to change the structures that uphold this suffering, which is true. And people need healing when they're suffering, and they need it now in order to be empowered and healed of their trauma. And one of the best ways that we can do that is by providing them the tools for art, music, dance, storytelling, self-expression. So we might go to the border and provide art supplies and banner making supplies, bring the boom box for music. We don't do art lessons. We don't do guided workshops. We provide the tools so that people can tell their stories in any way that works for them. And we have found this to be very healing. We're very grateful for the support of the UUSC. They have actually helped to equip us with the supplies for a participatory video project, which is being led by a group of Salvadoran migrants. And so through this project, they're documenting their experiences and they're recording advice for others who are traveling their path and seeking asylum. We're very excited about being able to do this project with them. So, these are tools for change, and they are tools for healing. And I can tell in this place that you all probably know something about that. You have art on your walls, I hear music and singing, and I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. And now I will introduce our speakers, our guests for guests at your table. Lisa Kent channeled Melinda Alofa from Kiribati. Melinda Tucker Furlan channeled Marta Velasquez from Honduras. And Corinne Bachman channeled Wai Nu. And then Roxane George channeled Monica Cursa. And they did a fabulous job, and I'm so proud of them.
In December, we think of winter solstice.